5 years, 8 books. There have been a lot of lessons learned. I'm not a full-time writer. I'm not a full-time author. I had zero expectations for this. It fills your soul in a way that I can't describe. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. I didn't expect to love it so much. I would do a lot differently. If you are going to be an indie author on Amazon, this is something you need to think about. Things that you might see me doing in the next 1 to 5 years. Hello, and welcome to a new video. Welcome to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm a full-time university writing instructor and a part-time content creator and indie author. Welcome back if you're one of my lovely returning friends. It is great to have you all here today. Today's not going to be a vlog. I know there's normally a vlog on Mondays. There will be a vlog on Wednesday, I promise. I've been wanting to film this video for a while. I'm a bit overdue. So before it got any later into the year, I needed to film this. Today is going to be my 5 years of self-publishing kind of update, recap, lessons learned, all of those sorts of things, where we're at, where I'm going with self-publishing. And yeah, I kind of wish that I could have found more videos like this when I was first starting out. And I know a lot of you here in my YouTube community are hoping, aspiring one day to publish a novel. Many of you are considering self-publishing. I think some of what I talk about this might be relevant even if you're looking to traditionally publish, because it's also kind of 5 years of being a part-time writer and writing for the purpose of publication. So yeah, I kind of wish that I'd found more videos like this when I was first starting out. I know I found some, but I feel like my experience is different from a lot of the people I've seen talking about it. I'm not a full-time writer. I'm not a full-time author. I call myself a part-time writer. I am trying to take that more seriously this year and trying to make this more of a legitimate part-time income. But for the past 5 years, it has very much been in this kind of hobby level space where it's essentially a hobby that I make a little bit of money from, but not really enough to make back the time investment that I put into my books. And I feel like that's fairly common. So I wanted to do a kind of 5-year update, 5 years now of self-publishing. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, and kind of go over the road so far, reality versus expectations, things that I would do differently if I was starting from scratch, and my hopes for where I'm going in the future. So if you are a fan of my books, I think you might want to watch this and just hear kind of some of the behind the scenes journeys of where things are going, where things have been, where things are going. If you're not one of my regular viewers, but you are an aspiring indie author, hopefully this will give you one perspective of what your journey could look like. I have my notebook and I have a few pages of notes and like bullet points to hopefully keep me relatively on track, but regular viewers know I am a bit chatty. I'm a lot chatty. There will be tangents, there will be side quests. I will try to keep the ADHD from going too wild and try to keep us on track. That's why I've got my notes. But yeah, anyway, it's just gonna be a sit down chatty video. So get comfy, get cozy, get yourself something to drink if you haven't already, and let's just chat self-publishing. So, timeline of my books, kind of, let's just give you a sense of where we're at. If you are a regular viewer, you can let me know how many of these you have read yourself. If you're new here, this will show you kind of how my journey has gone. So, and I do have the books next to me. So I will show you those as we go along. So we're gonna go in order of publishing. So in 2019, in December, the Kindle version of A Brave Start Across the Pond Book 1 came out. So this came out on Christmas Day. I hit publish on Christmas Eve. I had set a goal that year of publishing it by Christmas. Technically, I made it. Would I recommend launching a book on Christmas Day? Absolutely not. It is probably one of the worst days to launch a book, but I had zero expectations for this and I just wanted the dang thing out. This book had a very steep learning curve. We'll talk a little bit about some of that in a moment. But yeah, the Kindle version came out on Christmas Day. The paperback version didn't actually come out until April of 2020. Formatting for paperbacks, when you're just formatting in Word, if you are not an expert in Microsoft Word, is really hard. Amazon KDP does provide a template and like a step-by-step instruction. I still found that incredibly difficult to follow. Confession, I don't like the interior formatting of this. It's not bad. It's just not as good as all the other books that came next because those were all formatted in vellum. One day I will reformat the inside. That's part of what we'll talk about in a little bit. Then in November of 2020, so less than a year later, Brave with You, book 2, came out. And this one launched in Kindle and paperback at the same time. So there wasn't a delay. There was a delay with a Brave start because everything I was reading online at the time said that ebooks are like 80% of books sold, and everybody reads ebooks and everybody reads Kindle. I should have done some market research within my existing audience, because when this launched, the number of comments I got from people saying, "Congratulations, I'll get it when there's a paperback." So a significant portion of my audience wanted a physical copy. They wanted the paperback. They didn't want to buy it in ebook. With how ebooks are evolving, it makes a lot more sense now. I do think that there is a much stronger push for physical copies and buying physical books, especially in every year since this one launched. So lesson learned from that one. The next one launched in paperback and Kindle at the same time. Then in May of 2021, More Than Fate came out. This is the only book that has been co-authored. So this book is co-authored with my best friend and soul sister, Tamsin. So she wrote the character Macy, I wrote the character Isla, and we each essentially wrote half the novel. So we each wrote half the chapters because it alternates POVs. The chapters alternate which character is the main focus. So yeah, she wrote the Macy chapters, I wrote the Isla chapters. That is how I managed to also publish The Bookshop of Possibilities, which is book 1 of the Independent Heart series. This got published in August of 2021. So I was able to publish 2 books that year because one of them was co-written. So then the following year, in April of 2022, and this was late. This was supposed to come out in like November, December, but this came out in April of 2022. And this is Brave Together, which is book 3 of the Across the Pond series. So that one came out at the beginning of 2022. At the end of 2022, so I still managed to publish 2 books in 2022. The Inn of Hopes and Dreams, which is book 2 of the Independent Heart series, that came out in October of 2022. In November of 2023, The Candle Shop of Wicks and Whimsy came out. This came out in November of 2023. And then in October of 2024, book 4 of the Across the Pond series, Forever Love London, launched. So this is the most recent book. I am now currently working on book 4 of the Independent Heart series and slowly, early beginning stages, working on book 5 of this series. I am aiming and hoping to get book 4 of Independent Hearts out sometime later this year, and then book 5 of Across the Pond will most likely be sometime mid to late 2026. So that's the road so far. So now, expectations versus reality. The reality just has not been what I expected. And I had done a fair amount of research. Some of the realities have been better than what I expected. Some have been not worse, but just not what I expected. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it. So all of the groups and blog posts that I had read, all of the research that I had done, had made it sound really straightforward and really simple. See a lot of posts that honestly make self-publishing look like easy money. Avoid those sources like the plague. Anybody who tells you that self-publishing is easy money, it's fast money, you'll publish your book and within 60 days you start earning money from Amazon. Amazon has a 60-day kind of delay from when you start earning money. So you'll start earning royalties from the moment your book launches, from the first sale that you make, and then you'll get that first payment 60 days after your first sale. And if you continue to make book sales every month, then every month you'll get a payout from Amazon. I am at this moment Amazon exclusive. Essentially, I am a KDP self-published author, so all my books are available only on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. We're gonna talk about that later. So let's pause on that for a minute. We will come back to it. So all of the blog posts, all of the Facebook groups, a little less so in the Facebook groups, but you'll see a lot of like YouTube videos that just make it sound like there's just so many people looking to buy new books, and ebooks especially are really, really popular, and Kindle Unlimited is really popular, and you'll get a lot of page reads, and being a romance author or a fantasy author also really great, because there's like romance readers and fantasy and sci-fi readers are like super voracious. They read a lot. So you'll hear all of this. And there are people, and a lot of them have businesses built around selling products and services to self-published authors. So that's another thing to look out for as you are doing your research. There are people who will make this sound really great. And it is. But it's not easy. Self-publishing has been one of the hardest things I have ever done. Creatively, professionally, it's something that if you really love it, it will just, it fills your soul in a way that I can't describe. But then every setback, every issue that pops up, every error warning on upload day, like every little thing that goes wrong, and things will go wrong, but it all just feels so anxiety inducing, and you just, and maybe it's just me, maybe if you're less of a perfectionist or you have lower expectations, maybe it will be different. But I know some of you are self-published authors, and you're at a similar stage as I am, or you're on that journey. You can absolutely, and I'd love it if you would, chime in the comments to back me up here. It's not without its roadblocks. It's not without its difficulties. You have to push through those, because there will be a million little things that pop up along the way that will kind of make you feel like this was all a big mistake and you should have never tried it. But when things go well, and when you do make a book sale, and when you do get a positive review, or you have someone sharing your book on social media or emailing you directly to say something nice about your books, it makes all the difficult times worth it. So it's not easy, and it's not easy money or fast money. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but ultimately it is really worth it. One thing I wasn't expecting, or just that I kind of knew this was going to be an issue, but it still kind of surprised me. The cost. The cost of self-publishing. You could easily spend thousands of dollars on your first novel, and I really recommend not. I will talk about what I would do differently, and there are things I wish I had spent money on from the beginning, even if it meant delaying when my first book came out, and even if it slowed down how fast I could publish. You have to be very economical. I don't agree with you have to spend money to make money, because there are no guarantees in self-publishing. You could easily spend $10,000 on your first novel, between editing fees, copy editing fees, formatting fees, cover design fees, hiring someone to create a social media plan for you, hiring someone to implement that social media plan for you, hiring someone to design your author website, hiring someone to do other graphic design bits for you. Like, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars and only make back $1,000. And so that is the danger with self-publishing. You can easily end up very upside down in your costs, where you are spending way more money on your books than you are earning. You have to kind of learn pretty quickly that there are a lot of skills that this demands, And you have to make a commitment up front for which skills you have the money to outsource and you have the money to lose outsourcing it, that you can spend that money with no guarantee that you will make it back, and then which skills you are going to learn how to do yourself. So I ended up DIYing almost everything. I've done all my own covers except for book 1. My sister did the cover, and Tamsin and I hired someone for More Than Fate to do the font and the starry background and the night sky ombre. But then I put all the elements together and designed the front and back. And then all the other covers, I did all of the illustrations for all of these. This was the most recent one, but I illustrated all of these covers. So, and I'm not a professional illustrator. I'm not a professional illustrator. I'm not a professional cover designer. And you will hear people say, don't do your own covers. I don't know if I've actually gotten away with it or not. I get a lot of compliments on my covers every time I bring this up with someone, and sometimes even without bringing it up, people just say, I love your covers. So a lot of people do like them, but I also don't know if my sales would be higher if I had a professional do my covers. I don't know. And I won't know unless I paid someone to redo all my covers and then gave them a try. And it is tempting. I could do like one series and just have someone redo all the covers just for that one series and republish them and just see what happens and see if it makes a difference. Again, we'll come back to that. That's long-term plan. But back to expectations versus reality. I've learned so many new skills. I am a lot better at doing cover design. I am a better illustrator. I get better with every book. Like, I'm really quite happy with how Forever Love London turned out. I just thought this one turned out really, really cute. The townhouses, the wisteria, I really liked this one. But my illustration style is very different from the illustration styles that are kind of more trendy and more popular and more visible in online, in the romance space. So illustrated covers are common, but there are a few kind of general illustration styles, and mine just don't really look like that. Positive expectation versus reality. I didn't expect to love it so much. I knew I would like writing because I'd been a writer off and on for several years. My first book, A Brave Start, took me several years to write the first draft of it. I edited it in less than a year, but the first draft took me many years to write, in between a master's degree, a PhD, starting my full-time career in teaching after my PhD. So I knew I liked writing, but I didn't expect to like being an indie author. I love making YouTube videos about being a writer. I love doing my newsletter. I finally have a good newsletter strategy. I really like doing that. I'm slowly learning to like the kind of business side of things. It is frustrating at times. There's issues I still deal with, but generally the pros outweigh the cons, and I love writing my books and then publishing my books and then hearing what you all think about my books. But I also didn't expect marketing to be so hard. I am a writer. I am a creative. I do struggle with the business side. I am still at a stage where I'm not earning that much. So from a tax perspective and a finance perspective, that hasn't gotten that complicated. I don't have an LLC. I don't have my own publishing company. That is something that when you do start making serious money from your books, you want to do those things. But right now it is still in this hobby space. So that aspect of the business side isn't that stressful for me, but the marketing and book sales, this is something I'm still wrapping my head around, something I'm still learning, still trying to get better at. I feel like for these first 5 years, I have been a little bit more focused on just building my backlist, getting more than just 1 or 2 books out. And I would recommend that. In the beginning, just focus on getting your first or second book out, learning about the space, because there's things that you can only learn by doing. There are certain things that no matter how much research you do ahead of time, you're not really going to understand it until you do it. So I do think starting with either a standalone novel or maybe a duology, I kind of wish that I'd done it that way a little bit, but there's reasons why I started with A Brave Start, because this was the book I already had a nearly complete manuscript of. It was the easiest one to do. I know a lot of people now are kind of starting their AuthorTube channels while they're still working on their debut novel, whereas I was just trying to get something out as quickly as I could. Pros and cons to each of those approaches. But yeah, marketing is hard. I am this year trying to take this more seriously and learn how to be better at marketing and see if that impacts my book sales. But that was I think the biggest surprise, that it takes more than just talking about my books in my vlogs or posting some pictures of my books on Instagram. It takes a very specific and very strategic approach, and book marketing is different from general marketing, and being good at general marketing does not mean you'll be good at book marketing. So bear that in mind. If you're someone who's like, well, I do a lot of marketing in my full-time job or something, you need to research book marketing specifically, because it is different, and slightly different rules and slightly different strategies apply. And so that's what I'm trying to learn this year. I put down slowly growing a network and slash community of fellow authors. I don't think I was expecting this as much. I was hoping I could meet other authors through online and through my books, but I wasn't sure if I would. And so that is an expectation that the reality did meet the expectation. I was really hoping for that. I have managed to do that. I've made some really good friends, online friends with other authors on Instagram, on YouTube, people who I feel like if I ever visited the town or the area, country where they live, that like these are people who I think would be willing to like meet up for coffee and chat. When there's people who I know that if I'm struggling with something or if something is looking weird, I can DM them on Instagram or email them and just say, hey, like here's an issue I'm dealing with. Are you facing the same thing? That I think is really important. Being able to have that community has made a huge difference, because it's easy to feel isolated and alone as an author. So building that community, not just of readers, but also of fellow writers and authors, some who are at a similar level as you and some who are further ahead in their author careers, is really, really beneficial. Also, the danger of comparison. This is something I knew to be on the lookout for, and this is something where the reality did meet the expectation. This is like, that is definitely something that I have struggled with. It is so easy to look at someone who started at the same time as you and has a similar number of books as you, and it feels like they're doing better than you, or someone who started ahead of you but now you're kind of catching up to them, but you're still not doing as well as they seem to be doing. That can be frustrating. And then also seeing people who started after you, and like I've got 8 books out now, and I see people who have only 1 or 2 books, but they're killing it, they're doing amazing, and it's like, what are they doing differently? Nothing. It's the same struggle I have with YouTube. There are people who have been on this platform as long as me, but they've got more subscribers, or there's people who have started only, you know, a few months ago, and they're already hitting milestones that it took me years to get to. And so I knew to be on the lookout for this, because it's something that I have dealt with as a YouTube content creator. So I knew this comparison trap was something that I could easily fall into as an author. I haven't fallen into the trap, but I do notice it. I can see the trap. I can see it laying out in front of me, just waiting for me to step into it. And I manage to sidestep it every time. I manage to avoid it, but I still can feel those thoughts creep up. Why aren't I doing better? Why aren't I doing as well as this person? Why aren't I doing as well as that person? Or this person has had this amazing thing happen, but why isn't it happening to me? Especially when it feels like I'm putting in the same effort, or I'm putting in the same amount of time, or my books are just as good as theirs are. And when it's hard to see what what they're doing differently that's leading to me perceiving them as being more successful. And obviously you never know exactly how successful someone is. It can look like someone's doing really, really well and they're not. You know, when I look at the metrics that I can kind of see to kind of measure my books and my author career against someone else, I have to be very, very careful that I do that for research purposes, but then I don't apply a judgment to myself. Because if I see someone doing something that seems to be working for them, I want to try to learn from that and find a way of doing something similar for my own books. But at the end of the day, with writing books, it's just like doing something like YouTube. I can make the exact same video as another creator's, and their video can just perform way better than mine, because we're all different people and audiences are going to be attracted to us for different reasons. It's the same thing with books. I write romance books. I don't think my books are any better or worse than any of the other romance novels that are out there. I think they're better than some, maybe not as good as others. I think they're above average. Can I say that about my own books? I do feel like my books are above average. I don't think that my books are, you know, I'm not just churning out books as quickly as I can to release them as fast as I can, to earn as much money from them as I can. Like I put my heart and soul into these stories, and I try to write really engaging, really entertaining stories about characters that you hopefully will fall in love with. And so I do think my books are good. I don't think the lack of sales or the having less sales than I would like, I don't think that's because the books are bad. I think it's ultimately down to it's down to visibility of me as an author and my books on Amazon. It's down to a lot of other factors of just how they compete against every other book that's out there. You can do everything right. Like, ultimately, you can do everything right and still not sell books. And so it's not a guarantee, because there are a lot of other books out there. Kind of the final expectations versus reality. The business side does not come easily. And if writing and creating is your main passion, you are going to struggle with the business side. And just know that going in, and recognize that you are going to have to work harder on the business side. And I think one of my big problems, and one of the ways that I've kind of held myself back, is I haven't been putting as much effort into the business side of things. I've just been focusing on writing books and getting them published. And I think that's an okay strategy in the beginning for your first 2 or 3 or even 4 books, especially if you're writing all those books in one series. Once you have either a completed duology or a completed trilogy or 3 or 4 books in an established series, that's when you really need to start taking the business side a little bit more seriously, even if it means slowing down on how quickly you publish. And so that's something that's kind of the transition I'm in right now. Really good authors and really successful authors are good at both, or they early on start investing money in someone to help them with the business side. I'm still very much in a stage where I'm having to just learn how to do all of it myself, including the business side. So there is no outsourcing, there is no hiring a virtual assistant, there is no hiring a social media manager to do the social media for me. Like, I have to do this all myself, which means I have to learn how to do it all myself effectively. So yeah, that's kind of expectations versus reality. Now let's talk about what I do differently. And I think this is what most people are going to want to be interested in. So, short version of what I would do differently. So much. A lot. I would do a lot differently. 5 years, 8 books. There have been a lot of lessons learned. If I was starting over from scratch, there's a lot I would do differently. I think the first thing I would do is slow down. I wouldn't try to publish so quickly. I would ignore everything I saw about rapid release and building a series as quickly as possible and releasing books as quickly and as close together as possible. I was still spreading them way out by having them be like around a year apart as far as releases, but I would slow way down. I even would probably skip doing a series to begin with. I probably would have started with a standalone novel and maybe doing a series of standalone novels. Each of mine kind of are, but like the first 3 books in the Across the Pond series, they're their own contained story, but they're all focused around the same main character and her romantic relationship. And so you wouldn't want to read book 3 if you hadn't read books 1 and 2. You can read book 4 because this is a different main character than books 1 through 3 were. If you're diving into my Across the Pond series, which is my London-based contemporary romances, you can either start with book 1 or you can start with book 4, but I really wouldn't recommend reading books 2 and 3 if you hadn't read book 1. So with the Independent Heart series, these are all standalone novels within the same kind of interconnected world. So you could read book 3 and then go back to book 1 and then read book 2. You can read books 1 through 3 completely out of order and it will still make sense. You'll have minor spoilers for the other books. Like if you started with book 3, you'd have minor spoilers for books 1 and 2, but nothing that I think would then ruin reading books 1 and 2. So with this series, you can jump in wherever. Like I kind of wish I'd maybe started with this series. I don't have any regrets. But if I knew then what I know now and could start over from scratch, or if I was starting over from scratch, or the advice I'm giving you if you haven't started yet, I would probably start with either a standalone or a duology, and I would go more slowly and really learn from that first book and apply those lessons to the next book. I just feel like I went full force into it. If we say some of these things, some of these choices I made were mistakes, I then made the same mistake over and over and over again. Like one mistake, no regrets, it is what it is. But one mistake I made that I would definitely do differently is I would spend more money up front on one thing, and that would be ISBNs. I would, if I could go back to the beginning and redo everything, or if I, my top piece of advice for you if you are getting started is buy your own ISBN. If you're in Canada, you don't have to worry about that because Canadians get free ISBNs. And the reason number 456 million why I wish I was a Canadian as an indie author. Here in the US, you have to buy your own ISBNs. I can't speak for any other countries. I don't know what it is like in the UK or in France or in Germany or wherever, or Australia, but here in the US, you have to pay for ISBNs. The last time I looked, which was a few years ago, it was like $125 for one, it was like $300 for 10, or it was $600 for 100. So obviously buying 100 is the best deal per ISBNs, but no one wants to buy 100 ISBNs when they're first starting and don't even know if they're going to do that many books. But 125 for one just felt ridiculous when Amazon will give it to you for free. There's a catch, and this is the trap I'm currently in. You can also get a free one from Ingram Spark, but they have the same catch. So the catch is that then that company is the only company you can publish on. So I publish on Amazon, so I'm an Amazon author. So I get my free ISBN from Amazon. I can sell my books in other places, but I can't take my book with that ISBN to Ingram Spark and have Ingram Spark publish and distribute some of my books. I can only publish through Amazon. Now I can buy author copies from Amazon and sell directly from my website or go to a book fair. I could have a bookshop order my books from Amazon and sell in their bookshop. No one wants to do that, especially indie bookshops. They don't want to buy from Amazon for understandable reasons. So when you are an Amazon exclusive author, you are limited. So one of the big things I would do differently is I probably would have done a single ISBN to begin with for probably my first and second and maybe even my third book. And by around my third book, I knew this was something I really wanted to do. At that point, I might have saved up and just bought the pack of 100. That is something I am currently planning to do, is just get 100 ISBNs and go back and do my books. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I think I would publish wide from the start, at least with paperbacks. Kindle Unlimited, it means my ebooks are exclusive to Amazon Kindle, so I can't publish my ebooks anywhere else. Even if I had my own ISBN, that would still apply, but you can choose not to be in Kindle Unlimited. So I could publish wide with both paperbacks and ebooks and just not be in Kindle Unlimited. I could have them in Kindle Unlimited for 90 days when they first launch and then take them out and put them wide. There are entire Facebook groups about publishing wide. Publishing wide, and this is why I didn't do it, publishing wide is harder and more expensive because you need your own ISBNs, but it is better in the long term. 8 books in, I now know this is what I want to do. I want to publish wide, but now I have 8 books locked into Amazon. You can get out of that. You just have to unpublish them and republish them as new editions with your own ISBN. So this is the main thing that I would do differently and that I am now planning on doing. I feel like we've gotten so I hope you're still following me, is all I'm going to say. So these editions, these books will always, this edition of Bookshop and of all of them, the first edition will always be only available on Amazon. And even if I unpublish these, they will still have a page on Amazon because anyone who has bought a physical book could then go back and sell it used. These will always exist in some form on Amazon, the first editions, but I can unpublish it. I can give it a new cover. I can add some bonus chapters, some behind the scenes features, some different fun bits at the end in the back matter. There's certain things, like just doing a new cover would be enough for it to qualify as a second edition. You just have to make some sort of substantial difference from the first edition. So I could do that. I could absolutely do that. And then republish them as second editions with my own ISBN and then publish those wide. And this is something I have been wanting to do, but just I've wanted to continue publishing. I didn't want to slow that down, but I haven't been able to afford to buy the ISBNs. My perspective on this is now changing really quickly, and I'm feeling a lot more pressure to do this. I'm not sure if this is going to change my plans for Independent Hearts 4 or not. Basically, and this is probably a whole separate video I need to do, basically there are growing calls for Amazon boycotts, which you can agree or disagree with that, but that doesn't change the fact that the reader landscape is changing and a growing number of readers are not wanting to buy their books on Amazon. So if you are going to be an indie author on Amazon, this is something you need to think about. So Amazon boycotts are really only going to hurt indie authors. It's not going to hurt traditionally published authors. It's not going to hurt more established indie authors who have the money to publish wide, but it is something to think about. There's also a growing shift away from Kindle specifically, which will also hurt indie authors, particularly indie authors who are enrolled in Kindle Unlimited. So even if their paperbacks are published wide, if they're in Kindle Unlimited, it could change things. I have noticed that my Kindle Unlimited page reads are doing better this month and last month than they have almost ever. So I'm noticing an upward trend. I don't know how long that will last, and I'm not banking on that. All of this conversation that I'm seeing when I see these social media posts, though, it does kind of make me feel like, tell me you don't read indie authors without telling me you don't read indie authors. But I do think that if you want to be successful, and if I want to be successful in the long term, I'm going to have to go wide, at least for the paperbacks, if not for ebooks as well. And that's going to be a long process to either redo the covers myself or to be able to hire someone to redo the covers, to unpublish them and then republish them, to be able to save up to buy the ISBNs, to then navigate republishing, not just on Amazon, but publishing for them for the first time on other platforms. That's going to be a whole process. And there might be a year or two in the future where I don't publish anything new. I just focus on getting my existing books unpublished and republished, which is why I do worry about continuing to publish a new book every year if it's just going to be one more book I have to unpublish. I don't know. I haven't made a decision on that. So my advice, what I would do differently and what I would tell you to do is get your own ISBN so that you have that option to go wide, even if you don't publish wide from the beginning. Even if you don't publish wide from the start, get your own ISBN so that you can eventually more easily publish wide. And I kind of wish that that's what I had done from the beginning. I also wish I'd gotten vellum from the beginning because, again, I don't really like the formatting. I just don't feel the interior formatting of book one looks as good. Vellum only works on a Mac, so if you only have a PC, but I think there are other programs you can use. Like I think Atticus is good for PCs. I do wish I'd taken the interior formatting a little bit more seriously from the beginning. And I don't know that I would change much about doing my own covers, but I do wish I had a little bit more of a strategy or just a plan for my covers and my approach to them. I feel like my covers for the Independent Heart series are a little bit stronger than for Across the Pond, and so I kind of feel like maybe I should have just changed my approach with those from the beginning. So even if you have to do your own covers, take that very seriously and take a lot of time to really think about that. Don't rush into that and don't rush through that process. So wrapping this up, because I know this video has gotten really long and I'm already dreading editing it. Hopes for the future. Things that you might see me doing in the next 1 to 5 years. This isn't necessarily a 5-year plan, but these are just things that I would like to start doing. Go wide is the big thing. I really want my books to sell. And I want people to find them. I want people to read them. I would love to be in physical bookshops. I'd love to be able to be in some of my local indie bookshops, but that is a lot easier when you are wide because so many of them just don't want to order from Amazon. And also when they do order from Amazon, like the expanded distribution is just, it's really not good. And that's a whole other video. I plan to slowly unpublish my books and republish them wide, and I probably would do one series at a time. I don't know about More Than Fate. I'd have to talk to Tamsin about that. Like that one might just stay on Amazon. But for my existing series that I'm continuing to grow and publish in, they need to be wide. I'm just at that point. And with how the reader landscape is changing and as opinions about Amazon are shifting and changing, I just don't think it makes good business sense to only be on Amazon. So publishing wide is one of my big hopes for going forward. Learning more about marketing and taking the marketing side of things more seriously, probably slowing down on the speed that I publish at, just putting more time into the writing. I think making launch prep a more conscious and strategic process with all of my books. It's like by the time it's ready to go and I'm uploading it to Amazon, it's like, let me just publish it. And I don't really have much of a launch strategy, and I need more of a launch strategy, and I need to be thinking more strategically about the marketing and book sales side of it. I would like to do some merch for my books. I'd love to do some art prints. I'd love to do some stickers and bookmarks. I'd love to do book plates, like stickers that can be put on the inside cover that I can sign for readers. I'd love to design some that are like specific either to each book or at least to each series. I would love one day, this might be more of the 5-year plan, I would love one day to do direct sales through my website or through something like Etsy, and I do know authors who do that. I need to research international shipping options. The big thing that has held me back from selling signed copies and just selling my own copies online is international shipping. If I were to just ship a book myself to another country, because I have looked this up, it's like $26 to send it to Canada or to England. Those are the places I've looked. It is not cheap. I can send it across the US for like $3. So selling direct domestically, I don't think would be that complicated, but because so much of my audience is international, I just don't feel comfortable offering something to a portion of you that I can't offer to all of you. And so with book plates, at least, those would be flat that I could stick into an envelope, like put it in a card and mail it. And honestly, I'd probably do those for free. You know, send me proof that you've bought my book and I would send you a signed book plate to stick in that book. So that is something I would like to try to do. International shipping in terms of like a card or a letter, the postage rate for that is like $1 something. I could do that and I would happily do that. So I think things, flat things that could be sent in an envelope, little postcard prints, bookmarks, the book plate stickers, other stickers, those sorts of things I'd love to be able to do and sell through my website or sell through Etsy. But I would like to sell books as well online through Etsy or through my own website. I just think direct sales would be really nice. I could then sign them, but it is the shipping issue that has stopped me from that so far. And then the last thing I wrote is audio, ? I get asked every so often, would I do audiobooks? I would love to do audiobooks. I would actually like to read the audiobooks myself, like be my own narrator. I don't know if I could actually do that or not. I don't know if I'd be the best person, but this is the thing. Audiobooks are very expensive to produce. As an indie author, most indies I know who do audiobooks, if they're lucky, they break even. And there are some ways of doing it that cost less up front, but then you're really not earning anything off of them in the long run. There are some shady contracts out there to be aware of. There are some companies that just are not the best to work with. And then there are companies that are better to work with. And there are things like royalty sharing with the narrators where you don't have to pay up front, but then they earn a portion of the royalties. So audiobooks, its own world and its own beast. I would love to do audiobooks one day. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think it is far more likely, and one thing I have thought about but just have never had the time, is to read my own books on YouTube and just like do a chapter per video and then just put the whole book in like one playlist. But that is just a level of filming and editing that I've just never had the time for. And now there's 8 books. And so I don't know. I think if the books ever started selling enough that I could siphon off some of the royalties to invest in having someone else produce audio for me, I would love to do audiobooks. Just at this point, that might be more like a 10 or 15 year plan at the rate I'm going. I hope you've enjoyed this very long, very chatty ramble about the past 5 years of me being a self-published author. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been interesting. If you're not planning on being an indie author, I hope this was still interesting to hear more about like how I'm feeling about it. If you are aspiring to be an indie author, or if you are very early in your indie author journey, I hope this has been helpful. I think it's good to share different perspectives of what this is like. I wish I could do this in a more succinct and concise way, but that's just not how my brain works. So I hope you've enjoyed this long and chatty ramble. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I'd really appreciate both of those things. Say hi in the comments. Let me know if you're one of my readers, if you've read any of my books. Let everyone else in the comments know, like, which books you really enjoyed. Leave me just some books or like a book stack emoji in the comments to let me know which one of you lovely people have made it all the way to the end. If you're an indie author, let me know in the comments if you agree with any of the things I said, or if you want to validate any of the things I've talked about. Let me know your thoughts on anything I've talked about. If you're a reader, was any of this interesting? My experience is not unique. I know there's a lot of other indie authors who have this experience. Hopefully this gives you an insight. If you read a lot of indie authors, this is kind of what most of us are dealing with. And if you are a writer or an indie, just let me know some of your thoughts. On that note, before I get super awkward, or even more awkward than I feel like I already am, I'm gonna go. And I will see you all on Wednesday, back with a regular vlog. Normal content will resume on Wednesday. I will see you all then. Thank you very much for watching today. Bye!